We continue to make sure that injured victims receive the care and the resources they need. Yesterday, the medical examiner reported the identities of the deceased. Ashley Whitehead, 44 years old. 56-year-old Ashley Whitehead, 44-year-old Carlos Israel Sanchez Villalba, and 19-year-old Junior C. Nico Sema. Except for the 19-year-old who we believe was involved in the shooting, we understand that all others who have passed or were injured were bystanders. Thank you to those who organized and attended the vigil on the Seattle Center campus last night, honoring and mourning these 3 individuals and all who have tragically lost their lives to gun violence in our city. I appreciated being there, being welcomed in community, including talking with people who knew the victims and connecting with fathers who have lost children to gun violence. I had a chance to talk with vendors, with youth, and others who were at the Bite of Seattle on Saturday, and members of the Seattle Center community about their experiences. I want to go off script for a moment just to share one of the most meaningful moments last night for me. Aaron Murphy Payne, who is the father of Amar Murphy Payne, who was shot and killed outside Garfield High School in 2024, spoke eloquently. And one of the things that he said was that when a tragedy like this happens, often we say, I can't imagine. I can't imagine what it would be like to be there. I can't imagine what it would be like to be a victim or to be a family member of a victim. And he said, we have to start imagining. We have to start imagining. And for me, as the mother of a 2-year-old who spends a lot of time at Seattle Center, and knowing that a 2-year-old was shot, I can imagine. And I think Aaron is right. We have to start imagining because that lends this work the urgency that it deserves. To continue honoring all of those impacted by this senseless act of violence, the community is invited to gather for a silent vigil at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday. Come support one another. Bring a flower or a written message to the International Fountain, a space for reflection, compassion, and healing. We're working with our Office of Economic Development and the Seattle Center to reach out to the vendors who were impacted by the shooting and to understand what types of support they might need. And we remain committed to working with impacted neighborhoods across our city, from Rainier Beach to the Chinatown International District and Little Saigon to Capitol Hill and North Aurora, to address both the immediate impacts and the root causes of gun violence. Yesterday, we shared that at least 2 people exchanged gunfire outside the Seattle Center Armory. One is in custody, and the second has been identified as the 19-year-old deceased man. Police believe that this was targeted gang-related violence and continue to look for other possible suspects. At the press conference held Monday at noon, I shared a little bit about our approach for dealing with gun violence long-term. We are bringing in an expert in gun violence reduction, including youth violence prevention, who will partner with our city staff and our community-based partners to strengthen our coordination and accountability across our existing bodies of work. We are also in communication with and reaching out to the National Network for Safe Communities, Cure Violence Global, the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, and Cities United. These are organizations with demonstrated track records of helping cities to stand up successful gun violence reduction strategies across the country. And we look forward to learning from them about gaps and opportunities to enhance our existing gun violence work. And I want to express thanks to Councilmember Rivera for the Gun Violence Symposium that she recently organized to help to move this conversation forward. We will be undertaking this work in partnership with our City Council, the King County Executive and Council, the Regional Office for Gun Violence Prevention, our elected city and county attorneys, state and federal law enforcement partners, and most importantly, our communities who are disproportionately impacted by the epidemic of gun violence. At the same time as we are advancing new strategies at the local level, we also know that reducing the number of guns on our streets requires state and federal policy changes. We're grateful for the leadership of the governor and state lawmakers who advanced this work in Olympia, and for our United States senators and representatives who tirelessly advocate for common sense reforms in our nation's capital. Let them know that you care too. I want to continue to express gratitude to our police officers who have been working nonstop since this tragedy occurred and are providing regular updates to my office. And thank you to the Victim Advocates team at the Human Services Department and all of our community partners who are focused on violence interruption. And I also want to again recognize and thank the staff at the Seattle Center who've been steadfast in their support and coordination during an incredibly difficult time. And now I'm going to turn things over to Chief Barnes for some updates on the investigation.
Thank you. Good morning. As the city continues to grieve the loss of Ashley, Israel, and Junior, please keep the survivors of violence dear in our hearts. We remain focused on getting justice for all people involved in every aspect of this tragedy. That means we have a lot of work to do, and I want to provide you with the most up-to-date information about this active, ongoing, and dynamic investigation. We've been poring over evidence that we have recovered, and we're not slowing down. This includes video, physical evidence, photos, witness, and victim statements. We have dozens of pieces of digital evidence to review and are continuing to review that information as well as searching the area for more. Since Sunday night, we have received more than 80 calls to our SPD tip line, which is absolutely incredible. If you know anything, please call our tip line at 206-233-5000, 206-233-5000. At this point, we have interviewed all survivors and multiple witnesses, and will continue to do so in the upcoming days. Our hearts go out to these survivors, the families of victims, and our community. This is nothing short of a tragedy. We've had questions concerning camera footage. We have no real-time crime center cameras in that area, but we are currently reviewing all available camera footage in the entire area. This effort is being led by our homicide detectives as well as our SPD digital forensics team. We actually have a team of specialized investigators that know how to access, find, and download camera footage. This is not the case for a lot of police departments, so I want to highlight that work. We're still working on identifying other potential witnesses and continue to ask the community for support. Again, if you know something and yet you have not had an opportunity to talk to us, please call that number again, 206-233-5000. You can remain anonymous, but due to the high levels of calls that we have been receiving, if you leave a message, someone will get back to you as soon as possible. I also want to make a plea to an 8th victim, potential victim, that showed up at UW on Sunday. This person checked himself in with a potential gunshot wound. Due to legal barriers, we're unable to acquire the identity of this person. However, if you are that person, please reach out to us. We would like to make sure, number one, that you're okay, and number two, if you would like to speak to an investigator, please reach out to us so we can determine if you may have seen what had happened. I want to be clear that we have 2 deceased and 4 identified injured people who are not related to the suspects in any way. They are innocent victims of this senseless act of gun violence. Right now, we're working with witnesses to identify those who may have been involved. While there has been information swirling that we're looking for only one suspect, we're not saying that. It's possible that there could be more, but due to conflicting witness statements, we're trying to determine who was involved. Once we have that information, we will release that and that suspect description or suspect's description to the public. I do not believe that there is an immediate danger to the public because this was a targeted incident. There are families grieving who have lived through a total nightmare. They deserve justice. We want to hold those accountable, and we want to be responsible and responsive to our community. As we discussed yesterday, we believe this is linked to gang violence, and we're working to determine the groups involved and what their relationships may be. Let me add that we're also working with our federal partners, state and local partners, as a part of this investigation. To the investigation. We recovered 14 shell casings. from 2 different caliber of weapons during our processing. On the scene that night, we recovered a polymer 80 9mm ghost gun with an extended magazine that had a 33-round capacity. And when it was recovered, there were 19 rounds in the magazine. I'm going to repeat that. On the scene that night, we recovered a polymer 80 9mm ghost gun with an extended magazine that had a 33-round capacity. When we processed that weapon, there were 19 rounds left in that weapon. Those who may be unfamiliar, a ghost gun is an untraceable weapon that lacks a serial number. They are typically homemade and they are illegal. This was the firearm that was recovered from the 15-year-old suspect who was in court yesterday for assault and weapons violations. The second gun we recovered was a Spring Armory model RO compact 9mm with a standard magazine. There were 7 rounds in the magazine, and we do not believe this weapon was used in the incident. A third firearm was recovered by patrol officers yesterday during the food vendor cleanup effort. This was a Glock Model 45 9mm pistol with a fully automatic switch. It had an extended magazine with a 40-round capacity, and 21 rounds were left in the magazine. I'm going to repeat that. The third weapon was recovered by patrol officers during the food vendor cleanup effort at the Seattle Center. This was a Glock Model 45 9mm pistol with a fully automatic switch. It had an extended magazine with a 40-round capacity, and there were 21 rounds left in that weapon. Our detectives believe that the polymer ghost gun and the Glock 45 were used in this act of violence, but we are still waiting on ballistic testing to be completed. We're working with the Washington State Crime Lab to expedite this testing. At this time, we believe that none of the firearms reported were stolen, but we're still working to do what we call a trace on that one weapon. Again, we are relying on help from our state and our local and our federal partners. This is hard work. We continue to investigate. Our investigation is far from over. We know that the summer is not over. We still have outside events. We still have concerts, festivals, and big group gatherings. I want to assure you that we will be upstaffing these events throughout the course of the summer. And for our friends at the Seattle Center and our colleagues, we are here to provide any help or support that you need. And let me finish by saying this. We know that our community is grieving. People have a lot of questions, and we're doing our best to answer those. We know that the families of these victims are grieving. I attended the vigil last night along with the mayor and had an opportunity to see some family members and experience an amazing community-led event. And it was really, for me, it was truly an honor to be there with the family. For our officers and first responders who ran toward gunfire and was able to disarm a 15-year-old with a very dangerous weapon without a use of force should be complimented. And so I want to thank our officers, our first responders, our firefighters, our paramedics who also ran toward danger to render aid to people, which included a 2-year-old that was shot. I want to thank them for their work. We need the community's help in resolving this and making sure that all who are involved in this are held accountable. And we also need your help to make sure that if you know of any existing or ongoing conflicts, that we as adults, that we as community members work hard to resolve those conflicts to ensure that something like this does not happen again. I believe we can do that through the power of community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Barnes. So as you heard, automatic ghost guns were involved, and I cannot stress enough that this is why we have initiated a multi-pronged approach to fight gun violence. There's not, one thing that we can do that is going to solve this problem. We need to do many things. We'll take some questions now.
Mayor, I think we just heard from the chief the struggles with solving this crime and that there were not real-time cameras in this area of Seattle Center. This speaks to what proponents of that whole system have been asking for, which is more cameras in this city. Did your perspective change based on the inability of the police department to solve this crime?
So the police department is continuing to work on solving this crime. As the chief mentioned, we do have footage from cameras at Seattle Center. My understanding is the police department is also reviewing footage from private businesses around Seattle Center to see if there is relevant information there.
But in terms of the expansion of the program, which has been an issue for you since the start of your mayoral administration, does your perspective change based on what we have talked about now over the last 48 hours?
So CCTV cameras at Seattle Center have, to my knowledge, never been part of the proposed expansion to the CCTV camera program. And we are continuing to follow the course that I charted out earlier this year, which is we are awaiting results of a data security and privacy audit, and an evaluation of the pilot program is ongoing, and there will be a public conversation and decisions made on the basis of what we learned from
And
those.
again, why were there no alerts, text alerts sent out? This is an issue that Bob Kettle now has said was a valid question to be asked going forward. The alert system, Alert Seattle, did not tell anybody that there was an active shooter, did not tell anybody the Seattle Center was closed. What have you found out in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, no, I mean, that is a valid question, and we're going to be working closely with SPD and with our Office of Emergency Management moving forward to make sure that we're using every possible avenue to get information out to the public in the future.
Mayor Wilson, we have new information now that is shedding light into that 5-hour delay. We have new information coming in saying that between 7:45 and 8 p.m. Sunday night, that someone in your office talked to SPD leadership saying that they could not hold that press conference, and SPD leadership wanted to actually hold it immediately, and they were told it was because of dignitaries. So I'm going to ask you again, did anyone in your office tell SPD leadership that they could not hold that press conference between 7:45 and 8 p.m. Sunday night?
That is not my understanding, no.
Do you know if there's anyone else in your office that are making these calls without your knowledge?
That is not my understanding, no. So my understanding, which I shared yesterday, is that, first of all, we had a lot of communication going back and forth between my office and SPD and our state and federal elected officials as we were trying to work together on the response to this incident. Hold on. And like I said, at Seattle Center, we had a scene of active investigation where the police were actively looking for suspects. And so my understanding is that we were told that it was not helpful to have me or other elected officials coming down to the scene while that active search was going on. And so we went back and forth and eventually landed on an appropriate time to address the press and to share information. That is my understanding.
Is there a protocol right now, there is a big event like this, that SPD has to clear it with your office? Is there some type of indirect order or an official order from your office where they are handcuffed and you can't hold a press conference?
No.
I think what makes it difficult to believe is because they have had significant training that we have heard about. They've paid tens of thousands of dollars to be trained by consultants. So they know exactly how to handle a situation like this. They have the information, they know when to put the information out, they know exactly how to do it, and they have certified, trained professional law enforcement who are well able to handle this without your attendance or anybody else. So how does this happen?
I just answered that question in my response to the other reporter. Thank you.
Would you do this again?
Let's do James, and then we'll do you again.
Chief, quick question for the chief. This gunshot victim that turned up to the hospital, it's my understanding that the hospital is compelled to notify the police when a gunshot victim comes in. Did that not happen?
I learned about this after the person was released, and so we cannot compel the hospital to give us information on that person, so we were not able to speak with them. I believe our detectives did try to speak with that person. That did not happen, and so now we voluntarily need that person, if they indeed was injured, there to come and speak with us. If you know this person, or you are listening to this press conference and you know something, please call that number. I think it's important that we get every piece of information. Again, could be possible that it wasn't involved, but it could be possible that it was. We're trying to piece together a lot of moving and different parts, and so we want to make sure that we leave no stone unturned. And so to answer that question, my appeal is to what do we do forward? Moving forward, if you are that person, or you know that person, or you're willing to give us information, you can do that anonymously. Please do that. This is a ongoing and a very complex investigation, and every piece I think is very, very important. So that's all I'm saying.
Follow up here quickly. So are you saying that the hospital isn't compelled?
No, I'm not saying that they're not compelled. I'm saying that our officers were not able to, our detectives were not able to speak with them. I'll give you further information a little bit later if you contact our office as of what that process looked like. But I know that we would like to talk to that person. We cannot compel the hospital at this point to give out that information because of him.
Chief, and you're up here.
So, for the chief, is there anything else that you can share in terms of description of suspect or suspects? It seems like it's been a while and there's not much out there that maybe aid these tips that you're looking for?
Yeah, we're still trying to determine suspect description. We have so many people who are calling in with information. What we try to do is to get the commonalities in those: height, what they were wearing, age, description, ethnicity if we can, so that we can give out proper information. I want to. I'm not certain if the sergeant saw that or if that's a part of the original description, but I can get you that information.
Are you saying there's any, I mean, I know that you've looked at a lot of video footage
Sure.
and you're still reviewing that, but, you know, it doesn't seem like there's been a lot of detail in terms of the suspect and now some potential suspects.
Yeah, potential suspects. Yeah, we want to.
Is there nothing
Yeah.
you can share?
Not at this time, but again, that's why we're having these regularly as information, as we can verify it. We want to make sure that we're correct so that we can put out information so that our public can help us. You never know. People often take videos, selfies, you could about imagine. And so if we do get a very good detailed description that we can use, then we will do that. We also have body-worn cameras. So if our officers had something on body-worn camera that we can confirm, we want to do this. We want to get it right, and this is very, very important. I've done these investigations before throughout the course of my career, and sometimes that early, quick information may not be accurate, as you know. But at this stage of the investigation, we need to take our time, we need to do our due diligence, and we need to make sure that we can get information that can be actionable and that we can find out if someone may be a person of interest or a witness in this case.
Chief, can you address what happened yesterday following the police arrest?
And then my hand is up back here.
Okay,
Thank you, and then we'll come back over here.
Chief, you said yesterday, I reported based on several sources that you had planned to be out of town during the month of August. You said that reporting was inaccurate, and I've been unable, unfortunately, to get your office to respond to me. So what was inaccurate about that reporting?
I have not planned on being out of town the entire month of August.
Sorry,
If you said the entire month of,
I reported the first half.
yeah, no, not at all. I have some medical procedure on Friday. If I'm good to go, I'll be in the office. It's my usual cheerful and bubbly self. But if not, I'll take all the time that I need to make sure that I'm okay. If that's all right with you. I've asked and answered.
Thank you, Chief. What I wanted to ask about is how does the department effectively investigate gang activity without a gang unit?
Well, we have our gun violence reduction unit. They take the lead on most of those cases, as well as our intelligence unit. We do most of it during our 2 gun screening calls that we do on Mondays and Thursdays, where we're analyzing where gun violence is, any potential flare-ups, and making sure that we're monitoring people who may be actively using weapons or even have warrants to make sure that we can get those persons into custody. But all of our officers, this is a full complement of everything that we do with this particular agency. And we always look to make sure that we can make changes. For example, one of the changes that we made, our community response group, they're moving from patrol to investigations. We did that maybe a couple of weeks ago as part of our reorg to make sure that we're getting the support that we need when we hear that a violent crime may involve a gang member.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Bowles with the
Yes.
Dean Wellness Center, one of your partners, one of your 19 agencies, Mayor, that you have working in the evidence-based violence intervention project. We are part of the hospital-based part. We are also part of the state's evidence-based group. Are you aware we have not been paid We have not been paid by the city since April, but we have been working. We have been working. We have been receiving clients. We have been receiving referrals. We've been taking care of gunshot victims and their families. We have not stopped any work, but this office refuses to process invoices, refuses to pay us under a reimbursable grant. I have written your office, Joy Hollingsworth's office, your office. How many offices does it take? And this is why we have a problem. We're trying to work. Are you aware? We have not been paid, and I'm not the only agency.
Okay, I am not aware of that, but we will look into it. Thank you.
All right, this question is for the chief. Chief Barnes, can you address what exactly happened yesterday, that heated exchange following the press conference? What was that all about?
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it as a heated exchange, but that's okay. Listen, I respect our media. I respect what you do. I consider you a big part of the community. I wish I could do it, but I don't have a face for television. But let me say this. I'm always passionate about what I do as a police officer. I'm always passionate about what I do as a community member, and sometimes that passion is in full display, especially if someone is questioning my work ethic or my integrity. But I understand that your job is to ask tough questions, and so I respect that. I want you to know that, and that's for everyone in here. You have a tough job, and I do understand that. You know, having a 2-year-old shot should evoke strong emotions in people, and for me, I question, you know, what can we do better? I spoke about that yesterday at the vigil. I think some of you may have been there. You know, for the last 6 years of my career, I've been a police chief. That means that every time someone is killed, I get a phone call and a description of what happens. And my process, as I explained yesterday, is the same. I listen, I question, sometimes get angry. I wonder what could have been done, what happened, what contributed to this loss of life. And then we sit down, we roll up our sleeves, we go to the drawing board, and we say, what can we do differently? As I explained before, I'm moving our community response group over to investigations to help aid in some of the apprehension and detection of gun violence and making sure people are held accountable. And I take that very, very seriously. But I respect the work that absolutely everyone in here does.
Now, do you want to just squash the discourse about, you know, you not being in town enough? Was that
Yeah, you know, part of being a leader is being here, being visible, and being present. You know, part of being a leader in a major city is that sometimes I have obligations, and I wanted to be at the conference to support one of our community members who was getting an award, and one of our community service officers that was also getting an award from the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. Thank you.
How often do you travel to Chicago? Your wife and kids still live there. I'd like to know how often on weekends you travel there and who's paying for that.
Certainly, I don't travel as often as I would like to. I think any reports that I'm gone every weekend are grossly misstated. I don't have that kind of money. I'm here in Seattle. I love the neighborhood that I live in. I love my community. They love me. They know me. They see me all the time. You know, don't love the rent that I'm paying, but, you know, affordability is something that we're working on. Is that right, Mayor? So I feel good about being here in Seattle. I love this community. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted me to check in. Do we have more questions about the investigation? I do.
Okay.
Let's do one here and one here, and then we're going to start cutting it, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, just really quickly, let's talk about this delay. Now that people have had time to digest that it took so long to get information, what is your message to the citizens of Seattle? We've got another large event coming up this weekend. What are you going to do to make sure there's clear, faster, better communication to people when they need it?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think as I've said before, there's this tension between providing information fast and making sure that it is accurate so that we're not creating unnecessary confusion. And that is part of what we've been dealing with here. At the same time, we are absolutely reviewing what has happened over the last 24, 48 hours. We are going to be making improvements as we go to make sure that we are being as timely and communicative and transparent as possible.
Last one here. What would you want to say? People really want to hear. I mean, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we are we are trying hard in a very difficult and chaotic situation. And if you've been through situations like this in the past, like our police officers have, right, like information flies around, and it is just objectively challenging to be able to assess in real time and kind of decide what is shareable and what is, what we should hold back on. So this is a work in progress, and we will be continually working to improve as well.
Who fired the rounds that, do we know who fired the rounds
This is the last one here.
that killed the innocent bystanders? Do we know, Chief?
We do not, yes, sir.
We do not.
For both of you, today you say again that there's no public safety threat. Yesterday you were talking about investigators looking at the threat of retaliation. Can you help people understand how there may not be a threat with the threat of retaliation, and have you worked with the people who may be targets of that retaliation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line here is that because we believe this was a targeted shooting, we don't believe that there's anyone out there who is, wants to indiscriminately fire at people, right? At the same time, because we believe that this was gang-related violence, there is absolutely a danger to the people who are involved in those relationships, right? And so that is why we are working with our community partners, community organizations that do this work to try to do everything we can to prevent retaliation, to prevent continuation of violence.
How are you all working to protect those people?
I mean, so we have a number of organizations that we work with and fund through the Human Services Department that do that work, and we can provide more detail about that if you want. But yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone.
One question
Appreciate it.
about the investigation of the chief. Chief